Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Today's Wednesday, September 18th, and here's the news. As many of you guys know, for our first story tonight, we're going to talk all about last week's debate, September 10th, the presidential debate. That'll be our first topic, and then we'll get into some of the most recent breaking, I guess not breaking, but most recent big news, Trump's second assassination attempt, and the media's reaction to that. But we're going to hop right into our stories today. Thanks again for listening. And we got the fire back as promised. Although it's got some work needing to be done. Let it go out a little bit. So like I said, we'll get into the Trump news in the back end of this show. And I do want to go back and revisit the first attempt on his life in Pittsburgh. Not Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. Oh my goodness. Butler, my goodness. Just felt like Charlie for a second. So are we in Pittsburgh? Okay. In Butler. Thanks for tuning in. I'm everywhere today. But yeah, like I said, we're going to start off with the debate. And to get right into it, I think I'll start with the media's reaction. It's very similar. I mean, I hear everyone talking online, oh, Trump should have been expecting a 3-on-1, and I'm like, yeah, sure. Bigger picture is he should have been expecting the media to come out and say, oh my goodness, Kamala wiped the floor with him. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, it wasn't a good debate, and as we're speaking, we'll get into it more later in the show. This is shaping up to be a very shitty election. Like I said in the inaugural episode, I am a Trump supporter. I certainly was in 2016, 2015 when he started running. And I guess maybe ever since 2019, 2020, it just started to, fade. Don't get me wrong, I still appreciate what Trump did for American politics. People can say, oh, he's mean, he says all these mean things. It's not presidential. It's like, it's real. Half of our presidents aren't real. They're not real. I mean, of course they're real people. You know what I mean. They don't believe anything. And if they do, they'd be willing to sell it out. They have a price. Trump's the only president in my life who at least had the facade of can't be bought, can't be told what to do. But that's one thing the Trump campaign should have absolutely been expecting, is the media to come out and say, oh, Kamala mopped the floor. Now, to get into specifics during the debate, you just got to realize, Trump, first of all, we're watching two politicians on a stage. Trump, to all my Trump lovers, he is a politician at this point. And when you view it through that lens, you got to realize that, well, I mean, you don't got to realize, you just got to pay attention. And when you do pay attention, you realize that Kamala's lying most of the time and exaggerating occasionally. Trump's exaggerating all the time and lying occasionally. I guess I'll start with Kamala's lies because they're fresh in my mind. The first one being we have no one in an overseas battleground, saying that for the first time in however long, she said, we don't have any military personnel, soldiers on in a war zone, and that's a lie. We do. All over the globe still. Hotbeds in Iraq, Iran, Syria. Plenty, absolute lie. There's videos of it, you can check it out. Soldiers reacting to Kamala saying that. But it's on paper too. I mean, you can just go to pretty much any news source will tell you where we have active troops, or where we have troops active. She said that in 2020, Trump handed her off the record low unemployment, not since, I believe she said, the Great Depression. Another lie. Great Recession, 2008, I believe, had when Bush handed it off to Obama was lower. And I implore all of you to check the numbers, as I did, but my short-term memory isn't what it used to be. If a fact is in my head and it stays in my head, it's there forever. But in the short term, you know, can be tough. Of course, I mean, the moderators were complete, garbage, as to be expected. Fighting Trump on everything he said. And I believe almost everything he said was truthful. Late-term abortions are legal in some states. New York, Virginia. And then, of course, he has to bring it around to, oh, no one's killing a baby after they're born. I'm sure it doesn't happen on a wide scale, but Ralph Northam, of the ex-governor of Virginia, that's all Trump was quoting, was him. And what Ralph was saying was that we can have a discussion with parents after a child is born as to what to do with it, which is sick. In terms of who won the debate, I want to say Trump, but I'm biased, of course. I do want Trump to win this election. And to briefly get into it, like I said, we were going to get into later. We're going to hop around a little bit, but shoot. That's why I need a co-host, guys. Need a liberal co-host that I can argue with and who will keep me on track. But when I said this, I got it. We got it. We're back. When I did say earlier that this is shaping up to be a rough election, what I meant by it is, I mean, you do have to realize, as we talked about in our inaugural episode, politics absolutely to a certain extent, if not every extent, is a show. Not saying laws aren't passed and real stuff doesn't happen. But you do have to be aware who your candidates are really representing. And I don't think it's anything out of pocket to say that they're not representing you and me. 9 out of 10 of them, if not more. And a simplistic analysis of what we see in this 2024 election is going to be this. And we'll get into the specifics of why that's the case, of course. But you do have to realize, if you're a Kamala supporter, she is representing America's deep state. Where the people who are already controlling this country want to take it. Whether that's the likes of Big Pharma, the military-industrial complex. Like I said, we're absolutely going to get into specifics. I don't like to just be saying Big Pharma and the military-industrial complex, but what do you want me to say? Raytheon, Boeing, Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson. I'm not going to get... There's no need at the moment, but we will, of course, be on this show introducing you to actually how it works, you know. A big part of the show is going to be, you know, speaking layman politics, because it is important to know how things specifically move within this country. But for now, when I say deep state, think of unelected officials, whether that's at the FBI, CIA, DHS, any of those, any three-letter agency, almost any. People who weren't elected, they were put in that position maybe by someone who was elected, maybe not even. And if you're voting for Kamala, I hate to break it to you, just like what we're seeing now with American politics, you're getting the same as what we have now, essentially. I see very little difference between her and Joe. The powerful that run the most powerful nation on earth. And people I don't think actually understand that. People are always saying America's number one, America's number one. But I don't think they really fathom how number one we are and how the politics of this nation are so cutthroat. We just had like a record number of assassinations in the Mexican election, 2022 or 3, I believe it was. It's last year. Go see who won. Maybe that's a story we'll do another day. But she's not really a Mexican. And that's Mexico. I mean, Mexico is a powerful country. They're our neighbor. But here in America, it's absolutely cutthroat. Leave you in a river if we need something done. I don't think enough people appreciate that. But regardless, with Kamala, that is what you're getting. You're getting more of the same, the way things are run now. You're going to get more war in Ukraine, so that we can keep sending them billion-dollar systems and weaponry, machinery, you name it. If there's another pandemic, which we can only pray doesn't happen, or another, even not pandemic, just an outbreak in the United States. You'll see lockdowns, state control, federal control, the way things have been going. A consolidation of power, just more consolidation of power from the people that are already pretty well consolidated. You're going to see more corporatism, as we're seeing now. Of course, you see on Kamala's, what's it called? On her website, you see her platform that she lays out. It's essentially just Trump's platform. I believe Trump proposed a $4,000 or $5,000, I think it was a $5,000 tax break for first-time families. Kamala, we'll make it $6,000. She just priced his rights to him. Of course, she talks about price gouging, which, you know, we already have pretty robust price gouging laws in America, and that's not the problem. Realize economically, when she says we're going to stop price gouging, that's just more government overreach to solve a problem that they created. Economically speaking, to go off on a small economic tangent, I hear a lot of people talking about what causes inflation these days. Well, I'd refer you to Milton Friedman, one of the best economists, my goodness, in the world. Defender of capitalism. As I've said before, I'm a capitalist, but not to the death of me for sure. It's not a hill I'll die on. But I prefer it over everything else we got right now. Despite agreeing with, you know, some social liberals in some areas, you know, like nationalized medicine for those who need it. I think if the government's already going to be spending billions of dollars, might as well do it on its people, you know? If we're going to be inflating our dollar to no end, might as well give that money to Americans. Give that monopoly money to Americans. But that's what you're getting with Kamala. More of the same. You're going to see a pretty thriving stock market. The only pretty thriving stock market, DEI is going to still be a thing. I don't know why conservatives are making this election about abortion, because it is much bigger than that, but and I personally don't see Kamala doing anything crazy to, I mean, she says she'll overturn Roe v. Wade. That would be really tough to do. She would need the House and the Senate, I do believe. But that's what the media wants this election to be about, truly, is about abortion. And we're cutting off right now as we're back. If I got cut off, sorry. Got a little excited, but that's what you get with Kamala. You're going to get more of the same. As other world leaders in the United States have said, It's going to be the men in the black suits running this country. Come in, tell the president what's going to happen. A real puppet. In the debate, I mean, if we're muting the volume and watching that debate as well, just not for nothing, Kamala looked very nervous. She looked pale. She didn't look great, physically. She didn't look like her normal self. I don't know. She spoke, well, we have it muted right now, so. Trump looked tired. Neither of them looked very excited to express their ideas with America. And with Trump, the reason I say it's not going to be necessarily an election to remember is because Trump, let's not kid ourselves, conservatives, Trump has special interests of his own. Think about it. What are we going to get with a second Trump regime, 2024 Trump? Well, first of all, we're going to get war. We're going to be fanning the flames of war with Iran, at least. I'm going to hold off on Iran until we get into Trump's assassination attempts later in the show. In just a few minutes, actually. But Trump looked good, I guess. He looked better, I should say. Looked better, sounded better, had more home runs, had more hits in the debate. What hits did Kamala really have, besides talking ish on his crowd size? That's another thing that was amazing to see the mainstream media talk about. It's like the day after the debate, it's like Trump was biting left and right, biting. Trump was biting. He was a fish, and he absolutely took the whole boat. Like that means anything. The majority, no joke, the majority of the coverage I saw the next day wasn't really about the debate at all. It was about talking about Trump's maturity level once again. Well, if he's not able to let that go, what else might he do? Pretty ridiculous stuff. Excuse me. Pretty childish coverage of the debate. I wouldn't be surprised if people were eating dogs and cats in Springfield, Ohio either. When you have millions of immigrants from another country with completely different social norms and just completely different people, something like that might happen. Not everywhere in the world recognizes pets necessarily. But again, not something necessarily, immigration is very important, but there's no need to be hung up on whether they're eating cats and dogs. It doesn't matter. They're here illegally. They are not American citizens. They shouldn't be here. It is as simple as that. Trump did well on immigration in the debate. I mean, in terms of his presidency, those were his strong suits. His strong suits were probably foreign relations. How can I come up with his foreign policy? Thank you, my goodness. His foreign policy and immigration policy probably his two stronger suits. for his base, for sure. So he did good at hammering that home. But to go back into it, I mean, like I said, Kamala has her absolute flaws. She's a puppet for the deep state and for the people that really run this country. Trump, he's less of a puppet, but he still has, from what it seems, from if his first term is any indication, has people that he needs to make happy. All the same. Very similar to Kamala. He was unable to root out the swamp his first term, which I know is a very tall order. But we needed to see some headway. Like I said in the last one, we needed to see some of what Vivek is talking about. I don't know how I feel about Vivek, but what he says about the deep state is pretty accurate. Excuse me. And this does kind of join neatly with our second topic of the assassination attempts in terms of Trump's holdups and his backdoor supporters, his backdoor interests. Have you guys noticed anything similar about Donald Trump's first and second assassination attempt? I'll give you a hint. It was in terms of the media's reaction to it, / what they reported on it. Anything? No? Well, if I remember correctly, Thomas Crooks was said in the media that one of their hottest leads was that maybe he was working for Iran, or maybe he was radicalized by Iran, or even hired by Iran. All I heard in the mainstream was in terms of who did it. Oh no, it wasn't a mole in the Secret Service, or someone in the CIA, or both, or FBI, or DHS. No, he was most likely radicalized by Iran. This 20-year-old from Pittsburgh. I keep saying Pittsburgh, from Butler. I don't know where he was from, actually. From Pennsylvania, we'll say. Why haven't Mr. and Mrs. Crooks faced anything yet? They were social workers, and their son shot the president. I mean, anyone who watches, who got any more than an hour's worth of coverage on the first Trump shooting in Butler, knew that things don't add up. How does a kid who's identified by the Secret Service an hour before it happens as a suspect climb the nearest building to Donald Trump and get 7, 8 shots off before he's put down? Doesn't make sense. All information about pretty much any of that case has been sewn shut. The director of the Secret Service didn't give anything in her testimony, obviously. She just sat there and took it essentially for 4 hours. Very weird stuff. Then the second one, I don't know if this is, maybe this is for nothing, but one of the first things I hear about the second attempt is that he had an AK style weapon. An AK style weapon. For anyone who knows anything about guns, what does an AK-47 conjure in the mind? Does it conjure an American, a distraught American? Let's do that meme of what match the gun with your personality, you know? And even past personality. Just basically, what does an AK-47 conjure mentally? I don't know about you guys. I think of Russia, Iran, Kalashnikov, the guy who made it. People in America obviously use AKs, but when I think of an AK-47 or an AK style weapon, I think of the Middle East, Russia. I don't know if it's for nothing. I'd say it's not for nothing. But then we read more and more about Mr. Ryan Ruth, and we realize that he's had a record going back to the early 80s. And furthermore, he has had standoffs with police with weapons. And this guy was just touring around the world. Hawaii, Ukraine. I don't know if I believe all that American Foreign Legion or French Foreign Legion or any of that reporting. That he was an active recruiter for them. I've heard that they came out and the Foreign Legion came out and denied that. So I take their word on that, honestly. But why wasn't this guy in jail? Could you or me or anyone else have a standoff with the police, you think, with a gun? For hours and hours, multiple, over the span of 40 years, and not be in jail for a long time? Or at least, at all. No. This guy was just free to roam. Free to roam Mar-a-Lago. Crazy. I don't know if any of you guys watch crime shows, but when someone is convicted of a crime or pleads guilty to a crime, which is what Ryan Ruth did, pleaded guilty to one of the major crimes that he committed and then was let off. I don't know if you guys watch The Sopranos or any kind of mafia show, but if one of your members gets arrested, or if you just know a gang, if one of your members gets arrested on some pretty big charges and then is walking the streets a couple weeks later, guess what? He snitched, or he made a deal, or both. He tells them what they know, and then he's working for them. That's how it works. So the first attempt, we have a nobody and both these attempts they're trying to make out like a lone gunman. I can promise you that's not the case, almost. Promise. The one in Butler raises a ginormous amount of red flags. And I'm sure as more and more reporting comes out about Ryan, Mr. Ruth, that will have even more red flags, I should say. On top of the glowing ones that we have already. I've heard reports that he's in BlackRock commercials too. I haven't seen that yet. But if I do, I'll be sure to let you guys know if I get it confirmed. The Secret Service director on her, when she was subpoenaed by, or made to testify in front of Congress, or at least the special counsel. Go back and watch that, I implore you. I'm watching it and I just know it's crazy how that she's just unable to. You can just feel almost someone on the back of her neck, just wringing the back of her neck, saying, "Do not say a thing." You can almost feel it right there with you, but you know she can't say anything. She's being, with her life essentially. If she said the wrong thing, something's going to happen. If you want my best guess, it's a mole within DHS or CIA. Some external force wants Trump dead, and it plenty do. And they worked a mole into DHS, at least one. DHS, Department of Homeland Security, as you guys know, is the overarching organization that is responsible for the Secret Service. I'm sure pretty much all of his Secret Service agents want him protected, and you can see they're doing their best. Maybe. But I think it's obvious someone within our who has some strings that they're able to pull at some of these three-letter organizations actively wants him dead. And I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say want him dead, because now to connect this to Trump and his interests, special interests, it's not even so much Trump's special interests, it's the special interests that are working to coerce Trump. Kamala can be coerced 8 ways to Sunday. It's pretty easy. Kamala, do this. Okay. Trump, do this. Well, I don't know. I can see that happening a couple times. I don't have a good Trump impression either, so sorry. But to go into Trump's interests, special interests, and the ones behind him and around him, we will do in just a bit. So, we're back. So I should say that somebody wants Trump dead. One thing I haven't heard anyone really necessarily cover is the effect of a bunch of fake shootings and what they could have on someone. Trump's an 80-year-old man, seemingly constantly getting tackled by the Secret Service. Get down, Mr. President. Just imagine that you're standing there, you're president. And every other week you're getting tackled and swarmed by a group of people trying to protect your head from a bullet going through it. And then being told constantly, oh, it's probably Iran. It's probably an Iranian proxy. Oh, Iranian parliament is giving people free range to shoot you, Mr. President. It's Iran. I hope he doesn't believe it. I know J.D. Vance does. I don't know if he believes it actually, but that's what he says. When I say I don't like J.D. Vance in the future, just realize, conservatives, he is not one of us. He is a neocon. He is a good old-fashioned neocon. What you'd call him nowadays, maybe a neo-reactionary. But he has had an absolutely meteoric rise to power. He's only been, he was only in Congress, he was only a senator for a year, about a year, when he got the call. And not for nothing, when did he get the call? I think 3 or 4 days after. It was the Monday after Trump's assassination attempt. 2 days later, 2 or 3 days later. So, the way I see it is we have a couple options. One, people are actually trying to kill Trump. And people do want him dead. That's for sure. Or two, they're trying to reframe the way Donald Trump thinks about different issues. With a Trump presidency, Israel's deep state, are already in the bag. Good to go. Trump is going to treat Israel fine, give them everything they need. I do hope the populist side of Trump would have some urge to get it stopped. But for the most part, Israel's going to get what it wants with a Trump presidency. Kamala is a bit of a question mark because her base obviously no, but she's a puppet at the end of the day. And one of the major puppeteers in America is AIPAC and the Nation of Israel. But with Trump, they're definitely fine. So that's check one. Check two would be not just the safety of Israel and what's going on in Gaza, what's going on in South Lebanon. It wouldn't just be the safety of Israel, it would be the continuation of Israel. As long as Iran is on the map, Israel can never be safe. So when I say Israel's all good under Trump, it is more than that. It's we go to war with Iran, most likely. Probably a hot one. At very least going to get a regime change, back to the old regime change with Trump. I have a feeling with Kamala too, but for sure Trump. One thing that makes me not so happy to vote for the guy. And when I say not so happy, I mean absolutely dead inside. But I have a feeling that's what they're going to be doing with Mr. Ruth. They're going to be doing the same thing as Thomas Crooks. They already have released a crazy amount of information on Ruth, which is a little thing. They're kind of playing their cards the opposite way this time. But regardless, at the end of the day, they're going to try to make both of them, him and Mr. Crooks, out to be lone gunmen who maybe had ties to foreign nations like Iran, Iraq. I should say Iran. Just maybe. Just getting the idea around, maybe. And it does serve as a double, killing two birds. I mean, maybe literally, but if they are fake, if they are just fake, I should say, then one, it does convince, it does put in the brain, it does put a seed in the brain of Trump. That one, I mean, I need to tread lightly. Two, maybe it's Iran. Maybe that's the problem. But on top of that, it puts a seed in every American's mind. Or, you know, maybe with all this, they will get a real crazy who will just actually do it. And in the meanwhile, we'll continue to give him lackluster Secret Service protection. But yeah, my take on the second, there's something extremely fishy with both of them. Probably wasn't a lone gunman. Probably has an in somewhere in the strings of power in America. And we're getting no real answers because of it. For what reason? That's a little tougher, like we've just talked about. Maybe they really want him dead. Maybe they want to change his mind about certain things. Maybe their plot's to get a real person to try it. It is a very crazy thing to watch. Republican or Democrat, if you're into politics, just start watching the things that are said to Trump. Whether that be by the media, by notable figures, other politicians. Keep an eye out. It's very weird to me to see at least to look at it in the confines of Trump being groomed. Trump is constantly under mental attack. I do pray for him, as I do everybody, but it is amazing to watch, and especially amazing to watch in that context when you start really looking at it like that. So like I said, Kamala, she doesn't need any grooming. She's perfect. She's a robot. But Trump is a real person. That's why I voted for him in 2016. I mean, besides drain the swamp, make America great again. Pretty much those two things. Besides that, he was real. Now he has things I completely disagree with him on. We shouldn't have a dependence to Israel. not dependence. We don't depend on Israel for anything. We shouldn't have a political relationship with Israel. They should be out of our politics. He's also Operation Warp Speed. He did that. I disagree with that. Stimulus checks. Although I was 23 and really needed the money, in easier times, I would have fought. I wouldn't have, I would have spoke against it. To go back to it, I don't believe I actually ever finished my thought on Milton Friedman, but the only thing that really creates inflation, guys, is the printing of money. Just that. People are always saying, oh, it's this, it's that, it's this, it's that. The only surefire thing to create inflation is printing money. Now, there are other things that can create inflation, but what creates inflation every time is the printing of money. And that's what we've been doing my whole life, 20 plus years. Printing money when it's needed, spending it right away before the value of that money actually declines. Printing money, spending it right away while we hold on to our dollars. That's why, real economists, bettors, investors, I should say, have been betting against the dollar for years now, decades now. It's a pretty good bet. We'll absolutely be doing some more reporting on this, at least the second Trump assassination attempt, maybe the first two. It came in a little late for him, unfortunately, but of course, if new reporting comes out, you'll hear it here first. But yeah, closing. There's a crappy debate. It's going to be a crappy election as it's looking right now. We need serious change in America. I wanted to get into this, but we'll get into it next episode. Policy will not save us. A certain candidate's policy is not going to save us. I should say help us. The only thing that saves us is Christ, Jesus Christ. Although I love and respect everyone who disagrees. But policy is not going to get us out of this jam. And we'll get into that in the next episode. But yeah, crappy debate, crappy election. First and second Donald Trump assassination attempts are very fishy. And in fact, first and second, there have been more with the FBI in plain clothes to Mar-a-Lago. Look into that. This is probably, I should call it at least the second and third Trump assassination attempt. Plainclothes FBI agents showed up to his place in Mar-a-Lago with orders to shoot if his security shot at them. And what is Trump's, thank goodness for Trump's security, that they stood down and didn't fire at the militia of people that coming in to arrest them. Plainclothes FBI agents just look like everyday people. A bunch of people rushing into Mar-a-Lago with guns, with orders to shoot and kill if there's any shooting back. Look into that. So I should say second and third Trump assassination attempt, at least. But yeah, he's constantly being worked on. He's being groomed if they're not real. If they are real, he's constantly under attack. Either way, it serves kind of the same purpose, right? Thank you guys for listening. I'll see you next week. Have a great day.